Let's get started with the first topic. So how do we ask for opinions, or how do we ask with nuance? We're going to break this into 4 sections. First, we'll look at mistakes, then basics, or I should have said basics, but basic things. Then we'll look at big picture, and then we'll look at sort of very delicate forecasting style opinions. This might not make sense right now, but after 15 minutes, this will make a lot of sense, I hope. All right, let's go. Common mistakes that people make. Really common mistakes that people make are using this this phrase, how do you think about? How do you think about? Today, we're going to be using a lot of this noun or verb ing structure because we'll be using a lot of prepositions, about, on, in, at. All of these are using nouns or ing verbs. So every single day, somebody comes up to me and says, hey, Nick, how do you think about this? Or, hey, Nick, how do you think about this plan? Or, hey, Nick, how do you think about changing the color or something? In 99% of situations, this is no good because this is a direct translation of Japanese. If you ask the question in Japanese, domo, it's actually kind of how do you think, right? And it's a direct translation. And I apologize if my pronunciation wasn't great. But in English, we don't really say that. And I'll talk about why later. But this is NG. It's no good. In I don't know, 1%, 2, 3, 4, 5, it can be okay. So the second case is an example when it is okay. In my offline sessions, if anybody here has joined an offline session that I've led, I always tell everybody, how do you think about is no good. And then usually somebody contacts me afterwards and says, Nick, I found that question online. How has several meanings in English. How can be your feeling, sort of, or it can be a scale, right? How hot is it? How excited are you? It can be a scale. But how can also mean what technique, what's the method, what's the technique? How do you use this photocopy machine? How do you make your delicious lasagna, Nick? That's my best dish. So how can be multiple meanings in English, and this is where it gets confusing. So when we say how do you think in English, it usually means what is the technique something happened. So I can say, how do you think the pyramids were made, or the pyramids were built, or whatever you want to say. How do you think the pyramids were built or the pyramids were made? I'm not asking about my feeling. I'm asking about the technique. So this is a different type of how. So watch out for this common mistake. How do you think? How do you think about? How do you think about this? That's no good. How do you think the pyramids were made? How do you think Steve Jobs came up with the iPhone idea? That's great. It's not my opinion or feeling. It's an asking a question about the process, the technique. So how do you think Elon Musk creates new businesses? Again, it's about the technique. It's not about my feeling. So be very careful about that. When we're asking about opinions, in 7% of situations, we're not using this how do you think, because we're not asking about feelings with that. So watch out for that mistake. Okay, let's go on to the basics. Now, I told you today was all going to be about nuance. So we're going to break the nuance into 3 sections: tangible topics, speculative topics, and emotional topics. Because really, opinions, if we analyze somebody's opinion, we can break it down into logical structures. Logical opinions, tangible opinions, speculative opinions, and emotional opinions. Why is this important? It's important because it sets the definition or the expectation of what you want your audience to say to you. If I say to somebody an emotional topic question, an opinion with an emotion, I don't want a really tangible, practical answer. I want an emotional answer. And this is the skill that we're trying to move forwards with these EST webinars. We're going to go beyond Eikaiwa. This is really the small nuance differences in how we communicate. And so by the end of this, you're going to be as good as or better than most native English speakers at understanding these nuances. Of course, native English speakers, just like native Japanese speakers, do things naturally based on experience. If I ask my brother about the differences, he probably won't be able to explicitly tell me the reasons why he makes these language choices. But he does make these language choices. And most times he is correct, but he doesn't know why. So that's the beauty of having life experience, speaking a language. When you're learning a new language, that's the biggest challenge we face. We can go to Eikaiwa schools, we can learn from some great English teachers, but most English teachers don't understand those nuances of those language because they've never analyzed it. I've been doing this for 18 years, and that's what I do. All right, let's have a look. Tangible topics, speculative topics, emotional topics. So let's take a look at tangible topics. Yeah, what do you think about? What do you think about? What do you? So make sure your pronunciation is a little bit faster. What do you? What do you? What do you think about? Hey, what's your opinion on? What's your opinion on? And then either use a noun or an ing verb. So for example, I could say, hey, what's your opinion on the recent sales results? These are very tangible. The recent last month's sales results, July's sales results, or August's sales results. These are very tangible topics, right? They're numbers, they're figures, they're facts. Hey, what do you think about this month's sales results? Hey, what's your opinion on this month's sales results? And I don't want the speaker to tell me their emotion. I want the speaker to give me their analytical opinion. Yeah, I think this month's sales results were below what we expected, and da 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 da. So I'm looking for more of an analytical opinion. I'm not looking for an emotional response. So communicating to the listener, what do you think about? What's your opinion on? Is telling them you want tangible opinions. You don't want emotional ones. All right, let's quickly remind ourselves of the other parts. So at bottom left, we had speculative topics. Now, this one's a little tricky. If we change the word about to of, hey, what do you think of? What do you think of? Hey, what do you think of? Speculative means it's not realistic or it is more defensive. So we use these techniques when we are perhaps proposing something risky to management. If I'm speaking to my manager and I'm proposing something a little bit more risky, I might say, hey, what do you think of? What do you think of changing the product name? So if I say changing the product name, it means that perhaps I don't have a large amount of confidence in this idea. Perhaps I am in a weak position when I'm asking somebody else. Perhaps I'm speaking up, I'm speaking to management, I'm speaking to the CEO. So we use this speculative language when our confidence levels are lower. So look at the big difference here. If I said, let's use the first example, this month's sales results. Hey, John, what do you think about this month's sales results, huh? Hey, John, what's your opinion on this month's sales results? It shows I'm a little bit more confident. I just want his tangible, realistic opinion on this topic. No emotions, just tangible things. But if I said, John, what do you think of this month's sales results? If I say, what do you think of this month's sales results? It shows that I'm perhaps quite nervous about the question. I'm perhaps being delicate about asking the question. I want to be very sensitive. Maybe John is my boss in this situation, and I'm really nervous about his or her opinion. Or John, it's going to be him, right? So just slightly changing that preposition gives quite a different nuance, quite a different feeling for the listener. And it tells the listener that you are lacking confidence and perhaps you don't have a strong position or strong evidence to support, or you don't have a strong idea yourself, or perhaps you're nervous about the result. So hopefully you can see just tiny preposition change. Hey, what do you think about this month's sales results? Hey, what do you think of this month's sales results? Huh? Yeah, I know. Oh dear. So we're lacking confidence. When we use, let's have a quick reminder. Remember, bottom right was emotional topics. So when we want to ask about an emotional response, we use how do you feel about? Remember before in the mistakes section, I said that a common mistake we get is how do you think about? How do you think about? This is because it's a combination of two ideas. Think in English is generally considered to be more tangible. Think is a little bit like a computer, binary, 1010101010111001. So that's what. It's tangible. How is more about a little bit like a scale. How hot is it? We don't have really tangible things. Heat goes up and down on a what do I want to say? On more of a fluid chart. It's not tangible stages, is it? Yes, no, yes, no. It's up, 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 oh, and down, 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 down. So feelings in English are considered to be more fluid. They're not perfectly 1 and 0. They're not binary. They're not black and white. They are more fluid. So that's why we say how. How do you feel? Because it's a more fluid scale. Hey, how do you feel about it? So we normally use this to tell people that we want an emotional response, In reality, and this is the reality section, in reality, a lot of native English speakers use these interchangeably. When we're in a meeting, you might hear any of these. Hey, what do you think about? How do you feel about? What do you think of? But deep down, they are communicating more nuance than you might imagine. So in your Eikaiwa textbook, all of these might have the same meaning. And for a lot of native English speakers, certainly, I don't want to say not smart, but certainly daily communicators, not professionals, they probably do have the same meaning. But again, we've seen more and more in the last 20 years that good communicators, great communicators are the people that can climb higher in business because they have a better way of nuancing their language. So how do you feel about is asking for somebody's emotional reaction? So let's look at that example one more time. This month's sales results. If I said, hey, how do you feel about this month's sales results? I'm expecting an emotional reaction. I'm disappointed. I'm excited. I'm really happy. Oh, I'm shocked. I'm so sad. So that's an emotional reaction. Hey, how do you feel about this month's sales results? I am so disappointed. Of course, you can continue that story and you can continue to give your ideas, but hopefully now you can see that one example. Hey, what do you think about this month's sales results? I'm looking for a tangible, practical opinion on the numbers. What do you think of this month's sales results? I'm a little bit nervous about asking. Perhaps I'm in a weak position. Maybe I'm speaking to my CEO and I'm nervous. How do you feel about this month's sales results? I'm asking for an emotional response to that. So again, in many cases, a lot of native English speakers might use these interchangeably. They might mix, match, but now you know the difference. You can communicate with more nuance when you use these. Now, moving on, big picture. Big picture is very simple. We're just going to use two phrases today. What's your position on and where do you stand on? What's your position on and where do you stand on? So let's give a bad example. Hey, what's your position on the new iPhone 13, whatever the next one is? This is a bad example. It's not really big picture, is it? In this case, we would probably use one of these phrases. Hey, what do you think about the new iPhone? Or how do you feel about the new iPhone if we want an emotional response? So asking about the new iPhone is not really a good idea for this big picture language. So what do we mean by big picture? Well, importantly, we're using words like position and stand. These words communicate to the listener your core belief here, not here, but like deep down here, your core ethical position, your core ethical, no, I don't want to say core ethical, core belief. Let's look at some examples of how topics we can use that language. So political positions, maybe your political party connection, or Prime Minister Suga's action, something political. It could be government decisions. It could be big picture corporate decisions. It could be topics involving ethics. Let's have a look. So political positions. Good example could be this. Biden's actions in Afghanistan. You might say political positions and government decisions are kind of the same. And that could be true. But in this case, my political positions were more a case of Biden versus a Republican candidate or something like that. So a little bit more of a political based feeling rather than just a government decision. So now I can use this language. What's your position on? Where do you stand on? So I could say, hey, what's your position on Biden's actions in Afghanistan? Where do you stand on President Biden's actions in Afghanistan? This is communicating to the listener that you don't want a casual response. You want really a deep, thoughtful, well-considered ethical position or core value position. So again, let's review that language one more time. What's your position on? Where do you stand on? And you can use that with any of these. What's your position on Biden's actions in Afghanistan? Where do you stand on? What about government actions? So again, a little bit similar to the first one, but these are just big picture examples, right? Any big picture examples are okay. What's your position on the decision to increase consumption tax to 10%? Where do you stand on the decision to increase consumption tax to 10%? So again, it's a big picture idea here, isn't it? It impacts everybody. What about this one? Number three was big picture corporate decisions. So maybe you are, what's a good example of that? Panasonic. I think Panasonic stopped making TVs. I forgot. Maybe they did. So what's your position on our company ending production of TVs? So maybe your company has some big strategic decision or action. That's a great chance to use this kind of big picture language. What's your position on? Where do you stand on? And yeah, number four could be just topics involving ethics, just basic ethical things. What's your position on our company doing more CSR, corporate social responsibility, at a cost of R&D? This list of examples is certainly not the best list in the world. But the list is designed to highlight that these are not daily topics. Strawberry ice cream. I'm not going to ask somebody, hey, what's your position on strawberry ice cream? Where do you stand on chocolate ice cream? If you said that to a native English speaker, they might start laughing. So sometimes we use that as kind of a humorous icebreaker. So you can say that if you want to have a funny icebreaker, because the setup, what's your position on? Where do you stand on? The setup is preparing the listener for a really big idea. And then the result is just a daily casual topic. So if I were maybe in a bar with my staff after work, maybe we had a tough day, maybe we had a tough week, maybe situation's not so good, and I said to everybody, so guys, so where does everyone stand on the best beer in this pub? And I'm strategically trying to break the ice here. So I'm using this big idea language, where do you stand on, what's your position on, as a kind of humor. This is a very specific case. So in most cases in your business life, you don't want to do that. But here's one example when we could do it. So again, now we can learn a little bit of humor. This is kind of opposites, isn't it? Big idea language, an easy, simple topic. They don't match. Everybody gets nervous. Okay, it's a big idea, it's a big picture. Oh, it's a simple topic. Oh, okay. It's kind of funny. It's not haha funny, but it's still a kind of humor. All right, what about how to be extremely delicate about the future? And I want to use the word forecasting here. Forecasting means looking to the future. When we have an opinion, or when we're asking for an opinion, maybe the opinion hasn't fully been made yet. Maybe we are at the early stages of something. Maybe we're speaking to our CEO about a future project, and we just want an early hint about which way the CEO might go in the future, which way their opinion might go in the future. So we can use some different kind of language here. We can say, which way are you leaning? So this word leaning just means this. So your body goes to the side, right? So it can be leaning this way or leaning this way. Which way are you leaning means no strong opinion, no final opinion, no final decision. It just means the early feeling or the early hint towards which way we might go. So I always use this question when I want to find out about my clients' future plans. And I know my clients are thinking about a decision in the future, and I know they haven't made their opinion or their decision yet, but I want to get an early forecast. I want to get an early hint, and I want to be quite delicate about it. So I could say to my client, hey, so which way are you leaning when it comes to the IT upgrade? Or which way are you leaning on the issue of the IT upgrade? So when it comes to on the issue of, you can just swap these around. If you want to be really delicate, you can say, if I may ask, if I may ask. And it's nice and simple. Hey, yeah, Yuri, if I may ask, which way is your company leaning when it comes to this this policy? And I'm simply telling the listener that I understand that not all of the data or not all of the information is available yet. I'm just asking for an early hint about the future. Right. So what we've done so far is we've looked at, three different ways of asking for opinions. Firstly, we looked at mistakes, so really common mistakes. How do you think? That's a common mistake. Then we looked at some of the basics. And even the basics, we broke down into three different strategies, right? We broke the basics into tangible topics, speculative topics, and emotional topics. And then we looked at the big picture, and we said big picture really has to be these kind of big scale ideas. It can't be small things. But if it is something small, it can be quite funny as a way to break the ice. But don't overuse that technique. And then we also looked at how to be delicate and asking about a hint about a future opinion or a future position. So which way are you leaning? If you didn't catch all of that language, it's totally okay. Remember, you're going to be able to watch this video again. So you'll be able to pause it, watch it, pause it, take some notes. It's totally fine. So don't beat yourself up. Oh, I couldn't understand 10%. It's totally okay. You can watch it again later. All right, it's time to take a quiz.